Employers of Reddit, what's the maddest you have ever been at an employee for something they've said or done? Did it result in their termination? After more weeks of training than I should have been necessary, charts, books and explicit instructions, he ruined a 10k piece of equipment because he didn't load it correctly because it took too much time. He wasn't fired then and there. He was fired about 10 minutes later when I sent him to the boardroom to review the materials while I set up the replacement, and I found him in the CEO's office watching P. I didn't have the power to fire him, but I was so livid the words just flowed out of my mouth. Dear God, he sounds like he wasn't all there. I worked at a convenience store and often fell into the role of supervisor manager. My boss was on holidays when this happens. We had a fellow working one night when a customer brought in a $5,000 winning lotto ticket. First mistake, and completely against policy, he opened the safe and paid it. Nobody should know you can open the safe, especially when we worked alone at night. That should have been referred to the Lotto Corp to pay directly, or the owner could write a check. Second and worst mistake, there's little bits of paper you have to submit to the Lotto folks when you pay a ticket, so your store gets the money paid back, less a fee. He threw the paper in the garbage, which then ended up in the huge dumpster that served both us and several apartment buildings. So if I don't find this piece of paper, my boss loses the $5,000 and one or more of the employees might lose their job. I put bags over my shoes, grabbed a pair of dish gloves and a painter's mask, climbed a ladder and hopped in the dumpster. I started ripping bags and trying to determine what day and where it came from. Just shy of 2 hours later, I emerged with that piece of paper, followed quickly by the longest shower of my life. The butthole responsible for my dumpster dive did not even say thank you. He was not allowed to work alone for some time thereafter, and he got epically chewed out when the boss came back. The butthole responsible for my dumpster dive did not even say thank you. I hope that your boss at least knew what a solid you did for him. I once had to train some new girls, who seemed to be friends, at a concession stand. In the space of about an hour, they demanded they be allowed to modify their uniforms, asked if they could use our cash registers to check social media sites, were told that customers order food, you prepare that order. They decided that's too much work, and it'd be easier to make a bunch of random orders and serve them if they happen to get ordered. But, new girls, if no one orders those things, that food goes to waste. If that happens, can we take it home with us? Number disappeared into a storage room to check their phones and gossip. They hadn't been on duty for 20 minutes at this point. Had a popcorn fight. They just started screaming and throwing popcorn at each other while behind the counter. Were called into the manager's office and immediately fired. They threw popcorn at the manager and stormed out screaming about how they'd better get paid for all their work. I'm not sure they completed even 5 minutes of real work. Hey girls, let's go frick with the business today. My dad found out that his secretary had racked up over $45,000 in legal bills from emailing simple questions to a lawyer she was told not to talk to unless she asked my dad. He was very calm and wrote a nice email to her. She didn't get the memo. Her response was along the lines of, "Whoa, you pay your lawyer that much? I think I deserve a raise." Took a customer's vehicle, a built 73 Corvette, out for a test drive after fixing the water pump on it. It was his first week of working for me. That car was a good buddy of mine's. My buddy worked at the local drag strip. He was not happy when he saw his own dang car with his name signed on the roof pull up to make a pass. He told the guy in tech to not let it pass and he called me. I showed up and watched my buddy confront him about why his car was at the strip. Then I walked out of the office and told the guy he could find his own ride back home and that he no longer had a job. Dong move? Maybe. Was I dang proud of myself? Heck yeah. Not sure what the idiot was thinking. Taking a car with a guy's name on it and a sticker for the drag strip to that drag strip. Talking to the guy whose name is on the roof. I don't think he quite understood how guys work. Within the week every mechanic around us had heard about what happened and I heard the guy applied for a job at another shop like a month later. I doubt he was hired. Had to manage a bunch of contractors cabling the building. We had 12 of them. They were just a bunch of guys, no experience required, who applied first. Since we needed them urgently, no real interviews being conducted. One of them was caught stealing food from employee fridge. He did it for a week. He would even open boxes and taste what's inside before choosing the right ones. The other one left for a smoke and returned 6 hours later. His excuse was that he suddenly decided to buy an iPhone and went to the city to do so. So my mum, retired now, was a doctor who had her own private practice. At one time she had 2 assistants who helped with scheduling and basic things like blood tests and paperwork. This meant that these assistants can view patient files. Mind you that my mom and both her assistants were Vietnamese. This'll be important. One of the assistants was younger and basically had the job because her mother was a family friend. She had a habit of slacking off and going on random smoke breaks, but my mum overlooked it because she valued her friendship with the family friend. One day a white female patient came in. On the chart or something, it stated that she was not married but had 4 kids. While the lady was standing there checking in for her appointment, the younger assistant said in Vietnamese to the other one, "What a mess. 4 kids and she's not married. I bet we're going to be treating her for all sorts of STDs." That was when the patient responded in perfect Vietnamese, "I'm divorced. Also, my fiancé is Vietnamese so I know the language very well. I want to talk to the doctor now." Holy crap. From what I heard, a crap storm ensued. My mom was so embarrassed, and after seeing the patient, she got into a shouting match with the assistant. The assistant was fired on the spot. That is, after a lot of yelling, pounding on tables, and police were threatened to be called. Eventually karma did catch up to the assistant, because it turned out she was stealing prescription medicine from the office. This was revealed when my mom and the other assistant did an inventory check. Police were actually called that time. I don't know what happened next since I was a kid when it happened, but I'd like to imagine sweet karmic justice was served. TLDR. Don't talk crap in another language. You never know who speaks it and it could send your butt to jail. That was when the patient responded in perfect Vietnamese, "I'm divorced. Also, my fiancé is Vietnamese so I know the language very well. I want to talk to the doctor now." I wish I could see her face after hearing this. I was the assistant manager of a pizza chain. The manager hired an employee who I can only describe as a smelly moose. A big animal in your way that smells like fertilizer. He was our new delivery driver, and unfortunately 2 days into the job we caught a nasty rainstorm. He took it upon himself to pull the most half-assed attempt at faking a slip and fall while leaving the building that I swear you couldn't script it for life alert without landing $1 million deal. I saw the whole thing happen. Moose didn't see me. He fell by slowly lowering himself down onto his elbow, looking around for a witness to his crap show, and crying out like he had just shattered his whole back. He immediately started chanting "my ARM, OW my ARM, OEOW." So all us cooks piled around him and asked if he was okay as he was rolling all over the front entrance and all around making a scene. He finally gets up while holding his elbow like it had been shot by a bullet overseas and says he's fine and needs to take the night off. Okay, we say, and his mom comes to pick him up. Not 2 days later we get slapped with a lawsuit asking that we pay for his shoulder surgery. It's a good thing that the owner lawyer read up because that sob had hurt his shoulder years before and they wanted money to help with hospital bills. I'm surprised the owner had to get a lawyer. I'd imagine his work comp would be paying for defense. Not an employer, but I was the charge nurse on duty. One of the new graduate nurses injected cough syrup with codeine in a woman's IV. She called me hysterical. When I got to the unit the patient was short of breath. I called the rapid response team and she was transferred to ICU. When the team arrived the nurse was too hysterical to answer their questions and I had to pull everything I could from her chart. After the patient was taken to ICU I asked the nurse how this happened. She said she was too stressed out to realize what she was doing. There are a lot of problems with this response. First, if you need help it's okay to ask. Second, we are required to double check that we have the right patient, right medication, right route, right dose, right time. Third, when you scan the medication it says right there that it is oral. I felt bad for her because she was obviously sorry about it, but I felt like she needed more training. The hospital decided not to give her more training and instead wrote her up and kept her on the schedule. Oh my god, this is terrifying. Not a manager or anything. This person was my equal, but apparently I had to babysit. Anyway, working fast food, we have all these little procedures to minimize the amount of cash in the till in case we are robbed. $50 100 notes do not go in the till ever. Person working the register has been there for over a month, so not particularly watching. He yells out, "What do I do with a $100 note? They are very rarely used in Aus." I yell back, "Same as a $50, meaning it does not go into the till." So, this person brings it up on the register as a $50, gives change for a $50, then gets pee off at the customer who is demanding another $50 and change. The fricking tries to blame me. I manage a restaurant and apparently it's hard as frick to keep a dishwasher. The most memorable one stole a pig skull. It would have normally been thrown out after the chef took his customary photo, and she could have just asked for it, weird as it would have been. But she stole it and put it in her backpack, which was bulging. Employees' bags were checked by management before they left. I found the skull. Chef was mad. First person I ever fired for stealing a pig's skull. I really don't want to know why she wanted a pig skull. If anyone reads this and worked for me at any point, they will know exactly who I am and who this was. I used to work as an assistant manager at a small theme park over the summers during college. So I was maybe 21, 22 and didn't give a crap about the job. As a potential career, it was a tough spot to be in to manage 160 16 24-year-old kids. This one kid was a ride attendant. Total douche. Rumors he kept texting instead of watching the rides. Never caught him, and talking in fake accents to hit on girls while he was at work, who were like 14. I kept telling him to stop and to actually focus on work, and he'd always give me some "I'm so hard" teenager response because he clearly owned the world. Finally, on his last day a family comes up to me, ripping pee. Mom, dad, 3 kids, who were also Australian. Turns out the kid was talking to them in a fake Australian accent and kept saying derogatory things to the family because he thought they were also talking in a fake accent. I leveled with them, said I can't stand the kid because he's in butthole and to come with me. I'll get them to the front of whatever ride they all, yes, even the parents, because parents like rides too, wanted to get on. Walk up to the platform where the kid is texting again and go up to him. "Do you not understand the company policy?" Smirking, "What? You're going to fire me on my last day?" Grabbed his badge, threw it about 40 feet into the woods. "Yeah, I am. Get the frick out." A few people waiting to get on the ride started clapping. Best day of my summer that year. Not me, but my dad is the manager of a car dealership. One of the finance managers fricked up paperwork and had to redo it. The customer had signed the fricked up paperwork. Instead of calling the customer back in to re-sign the new paperwork, he thought it was a brilliant idea to sign it himself, as the customer. The customer was a lawyer. The finance manager was obviously fired. I had to manage a Target cafe one year because our manager had a stroke. Anyway, one tool would not wash anything. I'd go to pan pizzas and find the pans on the shelf were slimy with grease, gelatinous bread and cheese mixtures, and smelled like death every time I worked after him. I'd tell him to do his crap, get upper management in, but they didn't give a crap. So he'd go back to watching his anime on his PSP instead of working. He was the laziest freaking piece of crap I ever had the misfortune to meet, and they would not fire him. Oh my god, seriously. He caused us to have bad health scores. It still makes my skin crawl. I caught him throwing pans in the trash instead of washing them before our manager finally came back. Bless that man. He immediately barred that jackass from our area and crawled up the upper management's dong holes about not supporting me. It's been 4 years and I still hate that bee with every fiber of my being. Watching anime on a PSP. That's dedication right there, awful. I used to manage a gas station convenience store. I started my day at 5 AM and had a second shift person call out, so I was stuck there till 10 PM. Or so I thought. About 30 minutes before my third party person was supposed to start, he also called out. I was stuck there for a total of 23 hours without a single break before a manager from another store came in to relieve me. Before I left, I called my regional manager and told him and his company to go frick themselves, and I quit. Dang, what an awful experience. This is simple, but has to be done this exact way, so here is the instruction page. Follow these 4 steps exactly. Now let's practice a few times. Practiced a few times. Okay, great, show me how to do it. Demonstrate steps. Do you have any questions about how to do this? Employee: no, I'm good. Okay, cool. And if you get lost, just grab this page and follow these steps. Employee: yeah, no problem. 2 weeks later, discover a huge problem. Why was this done this way? Employee: oh well, I didn't really know how to do it. Grabs page. You follow these steps. And anyways, you demonstrated it and told me you were good to do it. Why didn't you bother to pull out this page or ask for more help? Employee: oh well, I didn't want to look like I didn't know what I was doing. But you clearly didn't know. I swear to God, I almost slapped her. Follow the 4 freaking steps in front of you. Hey, it's not her fault. You gave her -2 and it was all probably written in freaking Phyrexan anyway. I was night manager at a gas station at 19 and my boss hired a douchebag for me to train. I swear he cared more about his appearance in his blue jumpsuit than doing any real work. On the phone with his crew most of the shift. Cause lined up at full serve while he was inside checking his hair. One night I came in to close the store only to find it closed an hour before we actually close. He had a party at the station and was dancing on the roof of his car, holding a wine cooler in his hand while talking on his phone. Like 20 of his friends all there dancing to loud crap music and smoking weed, while customers were honking for service. I fired him on the spot and kicked everyone out and opened the store back up to finish the shift, offering free coffee to customers who were inconvenienced. My boss sees me at work the next day, says I had no right to fire the douchebag, lets him keep his job with only a written warning, and writes me up for giving away free coffee and wanted to dock it off my pay. I quit at the end of my shift and was told I could use them as a reference if I wanted, as I was a good worker. First reference call he got from my new job, he told them Fulgrim 26 has a problem following authority and makes his own rules. First reference call he got from my new job, he told them Fulgrim 26 has a problem following authority and makes his own rules. What a freaking prick. Please tell me his business went under. I run a recruitment headhunting agency in Sydney. One of my business developers sits there in a meeting with one of the largest marketing automation companies in the world and starts spilling a few secrets of their competitors whom we also freaking work for. I have preferred supplier agreements with both and this idiot thought it was okay to share this specific piece of information with the competition. I asked him please leave the meeting. The director I was speaking to could tell I livid and agreed not to act on the information. I had to call the other client and explain what happened. He nearly ripped my head off but explained this would change the relationship as he could tell I was being honest about everything. So clients are now exclusively mine and my business partners. Ooh, I have a semi-relevant story. Used to work in a body shop. Waterborne paint was the hip new thing. We bought a new spray booth for around $50,000 including installation and shipping and stuff. The manager of the install team was a total freaking idiot. Supposedly he'd been working this job for a while and was trusted with running the operation. In the week that he was here, everything he did wrong. I could go into great detail about his shenanigans, but for the sake of keeping things short, the tipping point was when he dropped a $20 K computer controlled air conditioner airflow module from 10 feet up, dang near on top of one of his own guys. Then he tried to tell us that it was still okay, even though we could clearly see damage. My boss had a lengthy discussion with the boss of the guy, and I have a feeling he is no longer employed. A new crew was brought in and finished the job with no issues at all. When I used to work in a truck stop, I came as close as I ever did to firing someone on the spot. If you've ever been around truckers or a truck stop, you'll notice that it can be a pretty diverse lot. It's good money for those willing to do it, which includes a ton of immigrants. In my time I had dealt with tons of people from Southeast Asia, India, the Middle East and Eastern Europe. By and large, they were great people and caused us the least amount of trouble. I always used to joke around with one of our regulars who was from India that he was torturing us when he would warm up the food his wife would pack for him in our microwave. Some of the stuff he had was amazing and would make you hungry just from the smell. We had hired a new cashier, and from the beginning I had the feeling she wouldn't last, but I'd give her a chance. A week or so later, while working on some crazy thing for an upcoming vist from higher ups, she made a snide remark over our radios that we wore, but the word I stopped listening at was Raghead. See, we all wore radios with earpieces to make communicating back and forth easier. The 2 other truck stops at our exit used the same system. and occasionally you could hear them. Also, every district manager in our company and all senior management had them, as did our secret shoppers. So this was a huge deal. I pulled her in the office and told her in no uncertain terms was she to use that term or any other term like it over the radio or in person again, or she would be out the door with no questions asked. This was her only warning she'd get on that. She ended up pulling a no-show next week on the store manager, and with what I had told him about the radio incident, when she did call in the next day, he told her to find new employment. Not employer, but was a manager. Two of the sales girls got into a screaming match, with curses flying, right in front of a lobby full of customers. They didn't get fired because the owner doesn't give a frick about anything, and I didn't have the power to veto him. That reflects horribly on the company. I had one guy on my team who made me angry literally every time I walked past him. I hired him as a favor to a friend, but he did have the proper qualifications. He was kind of a mess in the interview, which should have tipped me off, but I figured I'd give it a whirl anyhow. The dude was a complete butt. During training, he would randomly pull out his phone and start reading gaming forums. Bear in mind that training was composed of me standing and talking and him, alone, sitting and listening. When I asked him to put his phone away, he got visibly angry. He managed to screw up even the smallest of tasks when he was in my department, software dev. So within a month he was gently pushed off over to the deployment and support. Even there, he screwed up things regularly. The VP would ask him for simple things, because VPs ask whoever is closest, and he'd just ignore it. Something that should take 2 hours 2 weeks later it would be a quarter of the way done. 90% of his day was spent on either gaming forums or MLP fanfic forums. At one of my yearly reviews, the VP asked what I'd like to see change and I said I wanted this guy's head on a platter. He said he'd make it happen, after giving him 3 tasks which the dude failed miserably, and carefully documenting each failure, and talking to the idiot after each one. He finally fired the butthole. I've had a hand in firing a half a dozen people, but his was the only one that made me smile. A girl who was not the brightest but actually a very good worker when we needed it. She could step up and handle one of the stores solo and keep a positive attitude. Problem being, I heard she had taken to giving random people BJs in the bathroom. Random equals people she knew but a different one frequently. Finally I catch her going into the bathroom with a military guy about to board his plane. Knock on the door and call them out. Lecture her, write her up, and tell her it's up to the GM now. She admitted to it and everything. Cue next day when GM calls her down. She says she never even used that bathroom that day. None of it happened. I made the whole thing up. I was livid but didn't lost my cool. I asked her if she was going to lie and deny what we talked about. She looked me right in the eye and said I don't remember any of that. I have no idea what you're talking about. She kept her job and bragged to all the other employees about how she got off. I went upstairs an hour later to check on the store. Saw her on her cell phone that she was previously written up for, and told her to turn it off. She threw a fit, told her goodbye. She told me that I always see other people on their phones and never say anything. I looked her square in the eye and said I have no idea what you are talking about. I don't remember any of that. Was meeting my crew to go on a new job out of town and had to wait 45 minutes on a new hire. He got in my vehicle for the trip and the first thing he tells me he just did a dine and dash. When I asked where it was, a place I went to a lot. I asked what the waitress looked like and knew who she was. I asked him where he lived and told him that I used to live around the corner and what his address was. I drove the thieving sucker straight home and called him a piece of crap and kicked him out. On the way out of town I stopped by the restaurant and gave her his per diem. Shoulder taken him to the restaurant and called the cops. I'm a construction foreman. One of my boys asked to go to the bank on his break at 9 AM and said he might be a little longer. I didn't mind except when he came back stinking of beer. I told him to frick off and never come back, which he did with no argument. Had a flamboyantly gay male nurse at the last I worked at that slapped a female nurse on her butt and grabbed her boobs. When he was pulled in for counseling after she complained, he was flabbergasted that he could be in trouble for sexual harassment, as it should have been obvious that he wasn't interested in her sexually. Ended up as a termination mostly due to him just not getting it. Username checks out. I knew a guy who got fired on the spot. He was a real know-it-all. Conspiracy guy, smug in his belief that he's the smartest guy in the room, but can't hold a job at a gas station. So he was working at a gas station and someone spilled some diesel around one of the pumps. His boss asks him to come help clean it up. He uses going outside as an excuse to light up a cigarette. Boss tells him to put out the cigarette. They are at a gas pump, cleaning up spilled diesel. In a puddle they are both now standing right over. The know-it-all knows diesel won't light because of a cigarette, so he flings the cigarette into the puddle to prove his point. Now, he was correct, and the diesel didn't light. But there are still some things you don't frick around with, and you don't risk 2 lives because of something you saw on Mythbusters. Boss fired him on the spot. My father owns a restaurant. We had a chef who almost killed an old lady. He made the soup of the day and put salmon bones inside it and then tried to claim they were soft bones, and people can eat them. Oh boy did my dad release the Greek fury on him. I've eaten salmon bones, and they are soft. That said, they should not be in a soup. As an co, I had several troops under me. One of them was a smelly, socially awkward kid who was prone to outbursts. Not too uncommon in the USAF's more technically inclined career fields. But whatever. I figured he'd get a little light hazing and work out on his own that a shower a day was better than being harassed by the crew chief light. I was wrong. I had to write him up 4 times for not showering. He failed dorm inspections multiple times. Finally, the 1SGT has me showing up on my own freaking time, an hour before our shift started, just to wake him up, make him shower and clean his room, every single day. Finally, after about a month of baby stepping him through life, finances, daily care, and trying my best to be a non-judgmental mentor that he desperately needed, I thought he had it figured out. Shit, he was a bag of smashed buttholes, but I feel he can function at the bare minimum and survive the rest of his enlistment. I told Top I was wrong. 3 weeks go by. He starts to slip in the cleanliness department again. I give him a little slack. Ask him to tighten his crap up. Seems to work, but he's moody, quiet, defensive and getting picked on again. One day I send him to wash rack. Honest half day of work and you get to go home early to clean up and take the rest of the day off. Aircraft soap is notoriously harmful when exposed to skin for too long. Kid comes in the next day with the nastiest rash all over his face, neck, and arms. Not only did he fail to wear his PPE properly, he didn't freaking shower again. He's helping us download a flight target pod from a jet, and one of the other guys on my crew is giving him some real crap about not showering. Guy loses it, starts smashing the underside of the jet intake with a breaker bar, causing damage that would take days of NDIs and sheet metal work to certify good to fly. I was never more angry at someone in my entire life. Standing in dress blues before a 2-star base commander with that douchebag, explaining his total failure to function as a human being, detailing all the steps I took for corrective action. Freaking burn him Top. Burn him so bad his mother won't take him back. I told the 1SGT. He was bounced out after 4 months of labor duty and given a bus ticket home. If you are new to the channel, you can subscribe. I publish new videos every day. Until then, check another video. Bye for now.